Good morning, everyone. I will call to order the March 16, 2023 business meeting of the Board of County Commissioners. Gary Schmidt, you're up.
Thank you, Chair Smith. First, our staff support today, County Counsel Stephen Madcore, Clerk to the Board Tony Mayernick. Roll call, Commissioner Savas.
Present.
Commissioner Schrader.
Here.
Commissioner West.
Here.
Commissioner Shull.
Here.
Chair Smith.
Here. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone, and good morning. We are holding this meeting in person and virtually. If you've joined us via Zoom for this meeting and are interested in providing public comment, we will prompt you how to do that when the time is right. General public comment will be taken at the usual allotted time. I would like to remind the participants, including staff, elected officials, and members of the public, we will be following Robert's Rules of Order in this business meeting. We welcome your opinions and look forward to your polite participation. Gary, what's the first item?
Chair Smith, first is a public hearing for the Housing Authority. If you would please convene as the Housing Authority.
I will recess as the Board of County Commissioners and convene as a Housing Authority of Clackamas County.
Joining you online is Housing Commissioner Ann Leenstra. Commissioner Leenstra, are you there? Okay, one moment, please. There you go. Welcome, Commissioner. Thank you, Commissioner Leenstra. This is a public hearing, fiscal year 2023 annual plan and moving to work supplement. The anticipated grant value is $30 million, funded through the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. No county general funds are involved. Tony Carter is the interim executive director of the Clackamas County Housing Authority. Go ahead, please, Tony.
Good morning, Commissioners, and thank you for your time today. As a public agency, the Housing Authority of Clackamas County is required by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development to prepare and submit an annual plan that outlines its policies, programs, operations, and strategies for meeting local housing needs and goals. Today's public hearing gives the board and the public the opportunity to ask questions and provide feedback about the fiscal year 23-24 annual plan. This year's plan is consistent with our transition to becoming a moving to work agency and contains a moving to work supplement. The purpose of the annual plan is to provide accountability and transparency of how HACC operates to the community, the residents we serve, the board, and HUD. The plan and the moving to work supplement highlight achievements and identify any changes the agency plans to make in the coming year. Today's hearing was noticed in the Oregonian on January 6th. A 45-day public comment period started on January 30th and ends on March 20th. There is a page on our website where the draft plan is posted with instructions for submitting comments. In addition to the public posting, public comment period, and this public hearing, the Housing Authority presented its draft plan to its Resident Advisory Board on January 25th. The Resident Advisory Board consists of approximately 30 public housing and housing choice voucher residents. The group went over every component of the plan and was given time for comments and questions. The notes from that meeting are part of this official record and are included in the plan as Attachment J. Additionally, all the HACC residents were notified of our meeting today and could come and attend and make comment today if they wanted to. To date, no comments have been received aside from those made during the Resident Advisory Board meeting in Attachment J. Much of the plan is a required format and forms, but the highlight of the plan include a development update that makes clear our direction to move away from public housing ownership and convert it to increasing the overall inventory of affordable housing in our county. We highlight each program's best achievements and provide information about the new vouchers awarded in the year and the new resident services being offered. So I highly recommend you read that section. It's kind of fun to read what we've accomplished as a county. We explain policy changes we are making as allowed by the federal regulations. If you look at attachments A and B, it goes over very intricately all the policy changes we're planning for all of our programs. I'd like to highlight that what we've done is, overall, we're trying to reduce screening barriers. We're trying to make the program compliance easier for our tenants so that they comply and don't get terminated and end up evicted or on the streets again. And we're trying to reduce the risk of homeless periods between moves and increase housing stabilization overall. So if you look at some of the policies changes we have made, we no longer require a tenant to give a 30-day vacate notice before they can issue a voucher to search for new housing. And we will pay an overlap of rental assistance in the same month that they're moving. We used to not do that. We used to require them to say you're going to move out on one day and move into the next one the next day.
Oh.
And there was no overlap in payment. Now we allow a 3 or 4, 5-day overlap in
Got it.
payment from one unit to the next.
Nice.
We are no longer requiring everyone bring original documents. We're using the phone, text, signed copies, self-certifications to try and make it easier for people to comply with our paperwork bureaucratic process. We are increasing housing stabilization, mostly in public housing. There's an over-income rule HOTMA is a new rule or regulation they allowed us to adopt. When someone is over-income in public housing, it means they're over 80% of the area median income. If any of you are aware, the rental market right now is so high in rents that someone with 80% area median income can end up actually homeless because the rents are too high for them. So what we've decided now in public housing is we're going to allow them to stay in public housing, but now they're going to pay a flat rent that is a market rent that's still lower than what you see on the actual market. So it's a kind of a win-win for the housing authority. They stay stably housed, but we also get more rent. We address how we are spending grant funds for public housing with our capital fund dollars for the coming year in Attachment H. There will be an update to the audit, which was recently completed, and it'll address the findings and provide the recommended action plan. And finally, since we are a moving to work agency, moving to work allows us for exemptions that help us use federal dollars more efficiently and help residents find employment and become self-sufficient and increase housing choice for low-income families. So we notified the residents that we will be looking at waivers to regulatory operations in the coming years, but this year we are taking it slow and focusing on family self-sufficiency. We created our Move to Work supplement, which outlines our new efforts at increasing family self-sufficiency by building credit scores and savings accounts to help families with the goal of achieving better employment options or one day purchasing a home and graduating off of assistance. So the next steps after this hearing and your comments is the board has time after this meeting to make additional comments up through March 20th, and you can continue to reach out to me with any comments, concerns, or questions. We have to present to you at issues on April 4th to get the plan on consent agenda on April 6th. And then we have a firm HUD submission deadline of April 13th. HUD recently released regulatory changes that will require us to revisit this plan again in the mid-year, and so I'll keep you apprised of those changes as we understand these changes in the regulations. This concludes my presentation.
Thank you. Before I open up to Commissioner comments, Gary.
Yeah, so Tony, can you just confirm, because I want to make sure our script is correct, the board does not need to make a motion today. They are simply accepting feedback from the public.
Correct.
All right, so commissioners, with apologies, your script is incorrect. You are not making any motions today. Thank you.
Thank you. Tony, this is a great opportunity of the $30 million. So tell me, I have a couple questions, and I know the other members do too. Have we targeted rural areas with this money?
The Housing Choice Voucher allows anyone in the program to choose where they want to live. So they can use their rent assistance in the rural areas. If I were to tell you, when I look at the stats of who we're serving and where they're serving, a majority of our clients are not living in the rural areas.
So I'm talking the southern cities of the county. Sandy, Estacada, Molalla, Colton, even Canby.
We are using money in all of those areas, yes.
Okay, because there's a lot of new apartment buildings coming online in Clackamas County, or excuse me, in Molalla. I assume they're market rate, however. Are they?
Now, we have a new complex, Malala Apartments, that is coming on that's affordable housing, and we do have some units that we're subsidizing in when that opens.
Is that on Highway 211?
I do not know the exact address, I'm sorry.
Okay, well, that's good to know, because there's a great need for that.
Absolutely.
So you say you're subsidizing some of these rents, which I think is totally fine, because that prevents homelessness, and I think that's a good goal. Is the term rent assistance also a part of this or not?
Yes.
Okay, rent assistance is a very worthy goal, too. We have some commissioners who'd like to speak. Commissioner Schrader.
Yeah, thanks for all you do. I really appreciate this. You made a comment that I just wanted to ask a question about, and that is we are moving from owning public housing. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And however, my question is then, this is one thing that Senator Merkley mentioned, that we will build some of these units, and they're only affordable for a certain number of years, and after that, they can revert back to market rate. So is that an accurate?
Yes, there's a 30-year required affordability period, and then you can renew that. And obviously, as a housing authority in our mission, we would renew for all our properties.
Oh, yep. So you, as the owners of those properties, will renew, because what I'm hearing from,
There are some affordable housing complexes that we don't own and operate in the county that are coming up for what I would call a graduation from affordability. They've met their 30-year term. And there's a first right of refusal for those of whether they return to affordability, someone else buys them to keep them affordable, like a nonprofit. There's a first right of refusal process in that through the state.
do we track how many of them move into the unaffordable category at
The
all?
state does that.
Okay. Is it possible to get that information? And is that happening here in our county, do you think, to a great degree or not?
It happens in all counties, and we have gotten notice from the state when they think one is coming open to that deadline, and they usually contact us at least a couple years in advance so that everyone has an opportunity to think about, do we have the funds? How do we get the funds? Can we take over on this property? They also notify us if they think they have a good lead on someone. It always comes to the housing authority.
Okay.
And then
yeah.
they also notify us if they have someone they think is going to keep it affordable, then we don't have to take it on. We'll support that entity.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Shaw.
Thank you, Tony. You mentioned that the new plan reduces screening barriers. How will that affect our Clackamas County residents, citizens who are in need of housing support? And let me add, it was just last month that the Oregon Health Authority mentioned that there were 62,000 people in Oregon needing food support that were not federally recognized, and therefore the state couldn't give them that support. So my question is about, we have a considerable amount of poverty in Clackamas County, and we have a lot of people who, as you know, need housing support. So the reduction of screening barriers, like you mentioned, will that harm or help the residents of this county?
That will help. Right now, we are denying clients who cannot meet basic document requirements. We're denying clients because of criminal background screening criteria. And the federal government only requires us to deny someone if they're a sex offender, have manufactured meth in public housing before, and we're going down to that bar. We also are required to screen out someone if they've been assisted in other federal assistance and have done program violations. Up to 7 years was what our policy was. We reduced that to 3 years. So if they haven't done anything wrong in the past 3 years, we're not denying them. So we're opening the door wider instead of making it more narrow.
Okay, thank you.
Is there a wait list for affordable housing,
Yes.
supported housing? How long is it?
So each property is different on.
No, total amount in Clackamas County, I heard at one time, there was a wait list of 8,000 people, and that's very dated.
Yes, and it's been 3 to 5 years that people
3 to
sit on
5
there
years,
with no assistance.
okay? So will this 30 million help reduce the time on the wait list?
We hope so.
We hope so. Our other, and Adam, you can help me with this later. Are there other projects, not this one, since you're our housing guru, other projects online coming aboard that will help reduce the time on the wait list for people?
Absolutely.
And about how many units are those, do we know?
Well, that's all of those development ones we've got in the pipeline. Our goal is to get 1,500, so.
I know, so there's probably 800 to 500 correctly online to help reduce that.
Yes, and then
Okay.
by the end of next year, I think almost 500 new ones are coming online.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Commissioner Savas?
Yeah, it's conversations like this that remind me, number one, of how much paperwork, detail, and administration it costs to manage these programs and dollars. And I'm not looking for an answer, but I always wonder, what the cost to administer every federal dollar and cost to administer every state dollar and local dollars when it comes to some of these, whether it's supportive housing services, whatever it may be, that the contract administration requires people, requires time and dollars. But I always wonder, the same token is, I am, to Commissioner Schrader's questioning a little bit, I am anxiously awaiting the numbers on the, which I think Vahid said June or July or this summer, on the point-in-time count to see if we're gaining any traction. I would think it'd be, hopefully it looks hopeful that we're actually making ground, essentially. Because if the point-in-time count shows that our housing population is growing while we're building and building, throughout the region, well, I tell you, I don't know what we're going to do.
So I attended a meeting yesterday with Vahid Brown, and the point-in-time count draft numbers are down.
Okay, good.
So I'm very excited about that.
Yeah, when will we be privy to that information?
I'm not sure.
I'm sure you guys have a plan.
They have a plan. They're looking over the numbers now, and it's a draft, but yeah.
Well, that's interesting. That bears a larger conversation that I've been having regionally and statewide. So that would be, Adam, I'd need to know that. Thank you very much. Okay. Any other questions from commissioners? And thank you for joining, but please stay. So we are not taking action on this today, correct, Gary?
Correct.
Okay. So we go on to the next item, is that right?
Well, you still have public comment, please, Chair.
Public comment on this. Is there anybody who wishes to express an opinion on the annual plan and moving to work supplement anticipated grant value of $30 million? I see no one in the room. Tony, anybody on Zoom?
Madam Chair, at this time, I do not have anyone registered to speak. If you would like to testify on the annual plan and moving to work supplement, please use the raise hand feature, and I will call on you in the order received. Madam Chair, I do not have any hands raised.
Thank you very much. I will now close public comment portion of this meeting. And Gary, we will move on.
Very good, thank you. We're still with the housing, you're still meeting as the Housing Authority Board. Next is the Housing Authority Consent Agenda. Tony, would you please read the consent agenda?
Housing Authority Consent Agenda, Item 1, approval to apply for a capital magnet funds from Community Development Financial Institution for Phase 1 of the Hillside Park redevelopment project. Anticipated grant value is up to $12 million. Funding is through the U.S. Department of the Treasury. No county general funds are involved. Item 2, approval to apply for a local innovation and fast track grant for Phase 1 of the Hillside Park redevelopment project. Anticipated grant value is $6,653,696, funded through the Oregon Department of Housing and Community Services. No county general funds are involved. Item 3, approval to apply for a Nature and Neighborhoods Capital Grant from Metro for Phase 1 of the Hillside Park redevelopment project. Grant value is $1 million. Funding is through Metro Regional Government. No county general funds are involved. Item 4, approval to apply for permanent supportive housing capital funding for Phase 1 of the Hillside Park redevelopment project. Grant request is $1.2 million. Funding is through the Oregon Department of Housing and Community Services. No county general funds are involved. Madam Chair, that concludes the list.
Thank you, Tony. Does any commissioner wish to remove anything off the housing consent agenda? Seeing none, Ann Leenstra, I will accept a motion.
Commissioner Leenstra, you are muted.
Thank you. I do that all the time. I move we approve the Housing Authority consent agenda.
Second.
Commissioner Ann Leenstra has moved for approval of the Housing Authority consent agenda, and Commissioner Schrader has seconded that motion. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Tony, please take the poll.
Commissioner Leenstra.
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader.
Aye.
Commissioner West.
Aye.
Commissioner Scholl.
Aye.
Commissioner Savas.
Aye.
Chair Smith.
Aye, motion passes 6-0. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ann Leenstra, for participating today. You bet. I will now adjourn as a Housing Authority Board and reconvene as a Board of County Commissioners. Gary, what's next?
Next is the consent agenda for the regular county business. Tony, would you please read the consent agenda?
Elected officials, item 1, approval of previous business meeting minutes for the Board of County Commissioners. County Council, item 1, approval of an amended order approving the purchase of Quality Inn property at 9717 Southeast Sunnyside Road, Clackamas, Oregon 97015, and delegating signature authority to execute all documents reasonably necessary to complete the closing of the purchase of the property. Health, Housing, Human Services, item 1, approval of a contract with the Mental Health Association of Oregon for adult peer-delivered services, crisis services. Contract value is $425,561.42 for 22 months. Funding is through the Oregon Health Plan. No county general funds are involved. Item 2, approval of a contract with the Mental Health Association of Oregon for adult peer-delivered services. Aid and assist. Contract value is $204,128 for 22 months. Funding is through the Oregon Health Authority. No county general funds are involved. Item 3, approval of a subrecipient agreement with the City of Molalla for Civic Center ADA improvements. Agreement value is $95,000 for 1 year. Funding is through Federal Community Development Block Grant. No county general funds are involved. Item 4, approval of an intergovernmental agreement with the City of Sandy for support of the Mount Hood Express bus service. Agreement value is $297,048. Funding is through the State of Oregon Rail and Public Transit Division and $55,000 in budgeted county general funds. Item 5, approval of Amendment 1, increasing funding and changing the scope of work of a local subrecipient grant service contract with the Father's Heart Street Ministry to provide services during extreme weather conditions. Amendment value is $164,424. Contract value is increased to $260,560. Funding is through the State of Oregon Housing and Community Services Department and $9,464 in budgeted county general funds. Item 6, approval of a lease agreement with Canby Foursquare Church for providing space for the Women, Infant, and Children program. There is no cost associated with this agreement. No county general funds are involved. Item 7, approval of amendment number 1, increasing funding, revising the language in Exhibit B, and extending the duration of a revenue intergovernmental agreement with Lane County for the OregonFoodHandlers.com Consortium of Counties. Amendment value is $195,000 for 2 years, funded by Lane County. No county general funds are involved. Item 8, approval of a public improvement agreement with Galk Construction LLC for the Jansen Road Apartments Rehabilitation Project. Total contract value is $296,500, effective upon signature through June 6, 2023. Funding through Federal Community Development Block Grant. No county general funds are involved. Item 9, approval of a local subrecipient grant agreement with Todos Juntos Ready to Smile to provide community education and access to basic dental supplies. Agreement value is $44,436.97 for 1 year. Funding is through budgeted county general funds. Apologies for the error on the numbering there. There are only 9 items on that section. Transportation and Development, item 1, approval of the sale of parcels 11E25DA01600, 11E36CA07300, 12E32CC08300, and 12E30BB00200 to the City of Milwaukee for $8,080.70 based on the Clackamas County Policy for Sale and Transfer of County Surplus Property to Government Agencies per Oregon Revised Statute 271.330. No county general funds are involved. That is funded through the City of Milwaukee. Item 2, approval of a county opportunity grant with Oregon Parks and Recreation Department for roadway improvements at Fair Park. Grant value is $185,000. Total project value is $370,000. Funding is through state grant funds and 2019 Metro Natural Area Bond Funds budgeted in county parks fiscal year 23-24 proposed budget. No county general funds are involved. Madam Chair, that concludes the list.
Thank you, Tony, for that. Is there any commissioner who wishes to remove any items off this consent agenda?
No, Chair, can I make a quick comment?
Yes, you can.
Just at number 9 here, this is the Galt Construction LLC for the Jansen Road Apartments Rehabilitation Project. I just want to point out that that's funding through FD, Community Development Block Grants.
Right.
Those are really important for this county in order to get this kind of rehab going. And we are constantly at the federal level trying to make sure that HUD gets the dollars it needs to continue to get these pass-throughs to us. And I just had a question, maybe Gary can answer it. Okay, so where are the Jansen Road Apartments? I should know where that off the top of my head, but I don't know if anybody else does.
Adam, Rod, do you know? Jansen Road Apartments?
Where's the Jansen Road Apartments?
Apartments, I
If
need
not,
to drive.
you can send us an email
Yeah,
later.
I just was wondering.
Thank
okay.
you very much.
Sorry.
That's all right.
I'd like to do a drive-by. That's
Oh,
all.
okay.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you.
Good. Any other questions on the consent agenda? I'll accept a motion.
Your Honor, I move to approve the consent agenda as read.
Second.
Commissioner West has moved for approval of the consent agenda, and Commissioner Schrader has seconded the motion. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Tony, would you please call the poll?
Commissioner Savas,
Aye.
Commissioner Shull,
Aye.
Commissioner West,
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader,
Aye.
Chair Smith.
Aye, motion passes 5-0. Thank you very much. Gary, what's next?
Next is public communication.
Thank you. This portion of the agenda shall be limited to items of county business which are properly the object of board consideration and should be nonpartisan in nature, as the BCC is a nonpartisan governing body under Oregon Revised Statutes and County Code. Testimony is limited to 3 minutes. Comment shall be respectful and courteous to all. As a reminder, you can email submissions for public comment at bcc@clackamas.us, and these will be accepted as part of the record. I will now open the meeting for public testimony. I will take in-person people first. I believe this is the order that they submitted it. First up, Les Poole. Please identify yourself, your area of residence, and you have 3 minutes.
Good morning, Les Poole. I live here in the county. I'm here fairly often.
No.
You noticed. And a couple of thoughts. One is that actually is the sun outside. It's out there, and there's hope. Yesterday I stopped by the viewpoint at the falls, and there's an incredible amount of water rolling off. It's just unreal. So hopefully we don't have floods. You know, the sun might dry things rather quickly. So we don't need another disaster or a natural disaster in the county as we move forward. Some quick thoughts. One is I wanted to comment on Project Turnkey. I don't think you saw so much a distaste for the concept of Project Turnkey as the location and the process and the amount of money involved and how it's all going to work. And there's still a lot of unanswered questions. One of them is it's understandable that this is not an overnight shelter. That would be so problematic. I know you wouldn't go there. But we've heard that people that walk up or show up will be unfortunately turned away, and we understand that would be appropriate. But that begs the question, where will they go? Across the street to the mall? Across the street to the light rail, which is unfortunately crime-ridden? I get the reports, believe me, it's crime-ridden. So there's a lot of unanswered questions there, and we'll see how things work out. That's just a tough one. The other thing I was going to talk about briefly, and I've got a little over a minute here, is just to encourage folks to watch my comments last week about tolling and how the tolling program, as ODOT now calls it, will work. There's two different types of tolling, and one of them, of course, is created an incredible amount of angst. That's the plan to charge us to use existing highways, charge us a higher rate during peak traffic time, which of course will force thousands of cars into the neighborhoods. The current plan is a 2-year test case. There is no permanent approval for this concept yet. And so I would encourage folks to go to Clackamas Live on Facebook, and at the top of the page you'll find the petition to require a public vote on this turkey. And by all means, I think this is something that absolutely the public should have not only had more input on in the past, but should have the opportunity to vote on. And it's a nonpartisan issue. I don't come to you with a label here. I come to you as someone that believes I'm speaking for probably 70 or 80% of the folks in the county.
Continue.
So I do appreciate the time as always, and you'll probably see me here next week. Thank you.
Thanks, Les. You bring up two important topics that this board has expended an exorbitant amount of time and money on, Project Turnkey and tolling. I'll just address Project Turnkey for a moment. You say there are no places for people to go if they're turned away from Project Turnkey, which is traditional housing. You say there are no shelters, but then what is the answer? We try to establish shelters, and we are opposed at every single avenue of the way. And I've reached out to most all the cities in Clackamas County. Some would like to have more than they do, but they don't have the facilities. And so, Commissioners, I haven't had a chance to talk to you all about this, but I've been on the phone with the governor this morning about this. You know, she declared the emergency declaration, and she said, Clackamas County didn't give me the report that I wanted. Multnomah County was able to do that. Washington County was able to do that. And I said, oh, really? So, by the way, this call was not expected. And because she wanted metrics, she wanted them now, but we can't count any of the projects that we have in the pipeline that goes to the governor's emergency declaration. She wants us to create something new for $10 million. And we know how much Project Turnkey was, 15 and, okay? I says, well, Governor, what would you have me do? We are constrained by our land. You want us to build something? Yes, we don't have any place to put it. We are constrained by Metro's artificial urban growth boundary. Now, it's not artificial to Metro and the people who use it for their benefit, but when we're asked to do something at a broader level, we don't have the available space out there. I says, Governor, why not let's go, as you heard me just mention to Tony Carter, Sandy, Molalla, Estacada, Canby, some of those areas. Well, that would be nice. And are we able to spend what you want this money to spend on services to identify why people are homeless? And I tried to get her to go down that track. She's very housing heavy. And my nice reply to the governor is fine. We have hundreds and hundreds of units coming online, but that's not what she wants to see. So not only, Les, do I think that you represent citizens well, your comments were well taken today, we're getting pushback over here that then you're not going to get your $10 million. Basically, is what she told me today. Says, well, okay, we'll do what we can. we'll do what we can on that. And I did mention, Multnomah County, they're their own unique animal in that most of their programs for their county is social services, and they have a sheriff's over here, okay? As I explained to you, Clackamas County, we have 30 to 35 different departments and program services that deliver, from everything from timber to roads to this and this and this. And I tried to get her to understand some of the constraints that we have on finding a place to build. It didn't work, just letting you know. Commissioner Savas, you're up.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Thank you for sharing that. I'm often reminded, and I know that it means a lot to each of us, that the supportive housing services, Metro Bond, and the other Metro Bond to build housing itself, the sticks and bricks and the services bond are restricted to areas within the urban growth boundary. And we have a huge need out there for this particular purpose. People that are economically displaced, people that are homeless, houseless, and so forth in the rural areas as well, but yet very little means to do that. It would seem that maybe we should send a very nice, kind letter to the governor and saying, by the way, it's hard to initiate any kind of housing in the rural areas, knowing you don't have the resources or very limited resources. We would love to be able to use any kind of resources we can to expand and plan for in the rural areas. So maybe on Tuesday or maybe over the weekend, maybe we can consider sending the governor a very nice letter, but trying to outlining the financial constraints we have for half the population of the county, which is rural.
That's right. Yeah, Commissioner Savas, we'll be working on that. I'll be starting this afternoon after this meeting with staff to see how we're going to proceed on this. Commissioner Schrader, you have a comment?
Yeah, I wanted to address the rural areas because that is a significant problem, and I kind of got in trouble with my colleagues up north because I wasn't enthusiastic over the services measure because it really didn't seem to address the entire county, and that's water under the bridge. Okay. But we do have some tools, but one of them is the problem we have is it affects our general fund, and that is the property tax abatement. And we did have 2 rural housing developments in Estacada and Sandy, but because, and I don't know why I get called about it. I guess I've been around a while, I guess. And that's the dilemma we face, is we need some different tools from the governor other than the property tax abatement piece, because it keeps us off our rolls. So to me, that would be a solution that we need to talk to her about, because that's the dilemma we face as a county is, we're having robbing Peter to pay Paul in a constrained environment with the budgetary issues we have, I understand why that impact is not good to us. So there's got to be a different tool in a different way, and I just want to mention that. At least within the urban growth boundary, because of the way the sticks and bricks measure was written for our urban growth boundary, we can get more money to those big projects, like the one we just went to. What was the name of it? The big one that we just went to, Fuller Road Station. Metro gave money to that, but the problem we have, and the governor and Metro needs to know this, that out in our rural areas, we're not getting any money of any kind from a measure like that. And so our communities, our rural communities, are kind of getting shortchanged. So I just want to make that comment.
That's good.
Okay, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Seeing no other comments on this, we have a couple more folks. Christopher Lapp, please come forward. Had I known you were representing the district, I would have had you come up first. But please, introduce yourself and your area of residence.
Yeah, my name is Christopher Lapp. I'm the district manager for Clackamas Soil and Water Conservation District, 22055 South Beaver Creek Road. I'm here actually just to introduce myself. I'm the relatively new district manager at the district. I came on during the pandemic, and so I've been wanting to come here and to put a face to a name and vice versa. I came from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service as a federal land manager of 20 years of experience. So having the opportunity to be involved at the district level here for Clackamas County was an opportunity I could not turn down. And I'll say that since my relative short time here, what I've experienced in the county here and what the district's role is and what it could be has brought us to a point where we're now moving forward with a very complex but impressive strategic direction for the district for the next 5 years. We've just completed that strategic direction document that we'll take forward to the board next week for approval. But what really is embedded in that document is not so much a change of direction, but I think a recognition of where we need to be more focused. And I would say certainly, if you're familiar with the district's work, certainly has been an absolute support for technical assistance in the rural and small forest landowner realm. We have not really spent much of a presence in the urban area, which is where I really feel that there is a huge amount of movement that can have in the understanding of the complexity of conservation issues that we deal with. Primarily, a lot of those are climate-based, but education and outreach is something that I think is significant to be the first step towards that, but also start to bring that technical assistance to our urban residents as well. We're a tax-based funded organization, and that is definitely an obligation that we need to fulfill. I've been able to share our annual report with the commissioners here. If you've had an opportunity to read it, you'll get a bit of a shed into the work and the complexity of work that we do. I'd also ask to invite you out, if you have not come out to our new facility out there on Beaver Creek. We have the 15-acre farm that holds the Conservation Resource Center. And the vision for that, for where I see coming in the next 5 years, is to make that a central community asset point for Clackamas County and bring it as a demonstration site for conservation practices that we can share and springboard out into the community. So again, I want to take the opportunity to thank you for allowing me to come here and speak to you this morning, and I hope to be able to see you out there on the farm soon. Thank you.
Well, I drive by your place every day. And it's a beautiful, beautiful center, and I remember when it was sold and the construction happened there. And I would be more than happy to stop by and talk to you and take a look at the facility. I've been wanting to do it. I've just been kind of chomping at the bit to do that. And you say you demonstration of conservation type projects. You're familiar with the Hopkins demonstration
Yes, ma'am.
forest, yes. So how much do you mirror that, or are you doing something different?
This will be something different. We also brought on the Eagle Creek Community Forest, which is out by Estacada. That's about 350 acres. That is really probably going to be more aligned with the Hopkins demonstration forest, where we see silviculture being the focus of that, and actually bringing in technical advice to woodland owners, but also having it as an area for demonstration and support for higher education students to come out and learn more about forestry practices. At the farm, I see it really kind of being a broad array of conservation practices, both with urban, with rainwater harvesting, community gardens, looking at different types of rural practices that people can do with dryland farming, with manure management. So the whole spectrum,
Right.
having it at that place. And then, of course, there's habitat restoration potential that's there as well. So,
Now, you have that nice pond.
yes.
What are you doing with that?
We're going to look at that. I think, if you've seen that property, there's also a channelized creek that runs through that, trying to put that back into perhaps some more of a historical meandering footprint and have the pond be part of that system.
Okay, just curious. Well, thank you for coming today. Commissioner Schrader.
Yeah, thanks for coming. I knew your predecessors really well, and you're a great organization. My question is, do you work very closely with OSU and our extension folks at all?
We have, mostly in our outreach and education program. We've been able to kind of share some workshops and have OSU be part of that process. I feel there's a lot more we can do, and again, going to this strategic planning effort, starting to look at those opportunities where we can start to share that technical expertise.
And my second question is, you mentioned community gardens. So the community gardens, you're talking about more food production, vegetables and things of that sort, or are you also talking about the big movement that's going on to have pollinator gardens? Do you do any of that work as well?
Right.
Okay.
The answer to that would be both, yes.
Really?
We have the
Okay.
opportunity to be able to accomplish both.
Well, I don't want to upset my administrator here, but I'm going to ask him to do anything on this campus for us, right?
Well, again, that's kind of our role, so if there's
Okay,
an
well-
opportunity, reach out.
All right, Gary, I'll be in touch, but I promise I won't cause too much trouble. But I've been pushing for pollination gardens on this campus. I think it would be fantastic. But, you know, again, we have limited resources, but, so I'm just sharing my bias here a little bit.
I
Thank
appreciate
you.
it.
Thank you. Commissioner Savas.
Yeah, at first I thought you were here because of all that red soil out there we're conserving. I guess not. What I really wanted to just ask you was, as a result of the forest fires we had here in Clackamas County a couple years ago, are there any unique challenges or opportunities that come along with that for restoration?
It's a great question, and the answer to that is yes. We actually have just been able to work with the U.S. Forest Service. You know, they had the disaster relief supplemental funding that came down through federal dollars with that, and the district was able to be a partner of that to the tune of about $800,000 that's going to come to the district. Most of that's going to invasive species management post-wildfire on those areas that have been disturbed, and we'll actually be able to bring on, through those federal dollars, at least 2 seasonal weed-wise technicians and then 1 full-time specialist to help in that endeavor. So yes, that's definitely strengthened that partnership. And then we've also been looking at, you know, working with OWEB dollars to start to put technical assistance to those residences that were actually outside of those footprint fires that got federal funding that don't have the ability to go after those disaster release funds, and bringing the district to the forefront of that, helping them with post-wildfire rehabilitation.
And last question, do you need any property owner permission to do any of that work, cooperation?
Yes, we have to have permission to be able to go onto that property and work. And usually it's, you know, more often than not, they're coming to us. So it's a pretty good two-way communication.
Okay, great. Well, thanks for coming today.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any further comments?
No, ma'am.
Good. Thanks for coming. We appreciate the information.
You're welcome.
Great. Up next, Shirley Duber. Did I say that right? Please introduce yourself, ma'am, and your area of residence.
I'm bringing my friend with me because.
That's fine. We like peeps around
I
here.
was out in the sunshine, and I can't read very well right now. My name is Shirley Duber. I live at 23307 East Wildwood in Welches, and I'm coming in behalf of a number of people that have talked to me about what they used to do on the Dorman property, the things that they remember a lot. And one of the most mentioned was the 4th of July, where we had
Continued.
parking, we had fireworks, and food, beverages, and I think everybody in the whole community participated. It was very crowded. And
Community yard sale.
oh, we also had the whole community would bring in donations to the area when we had our community yard sale. It was a huge success always. We always got a lot more than we could sell. And we had CPO meetings there. We had the town hall meetings for the villages and all the village meetings were held at that building. And the women's club were the ones that were responsible for it and probably had the least amount of access to it because the whole community was totally figured it was, just for the community. And every now and then we got to have a women's club meeting there.
Fundraiser.
And we had a lot of fundraising, again, community, because we had to raise money for the fireworks and all of that kind of thing. And the library was there. At first, it was a truck that would come, would drop off the books that were ordered, pick up the books that had been read, and then it became a whole room. And we even had a librarian. And when the building went, they left for the shopping center. And it was, as you can see, every age group in the community used that property, and we also had a daycare there. And the different age groups would be in different rooms, different floors. It was absolutely a delight to go in there when daycare was there. Oh, my time is up. I'm sorry.
Do you have a concluding statement, Shirley? Please make it, if you knew. I won't say the whole community. The greatest part of the community wants to see that property in their hands, so they can have part of all of this back again. And the fire department has indicated that it will be. Any questions? Okay, thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
We appreciate your concerns being brought here today, and we appreciate the history lesson on all the wonderful activities up in the area. And we are mindful of that as we move forward on trying to figure out how to accommodate many people's needs on the mountain.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Gary, what's next?
We're still on public communication, Chair. Online?
Yes, Tony online.
We'll begin with Mr. Bill Weir. Mr. Bill Weir, please state your name and area of residence. You will have 3 minutes.
Good morning, Chair Smith and Commissioners. Bill Weir, Damascus. I want to speak about how important it is that commissioners stay connected with your constituents. I would think your priority would be to the locals of Clackamas County. It would be primarily to actively be involved with your fellow commissioners in policy discussions, issues awareness, legislating, and listening to public testimony. Another way of accomplishing this is to respond to constituents' emails. A model of excellent responses by our county administrator. I've sent a number of emails over the years to him. Each time, he responds in a timely manner, answers each question in detail, and invites any other questions, but not so much with every commissioner. I want to give you a recent example of my attempt to communicate with a commissioner. I sent an email to Commissioner Schrader requesting explanation on 3 questions that I had concerning beliefs that she expressed on commission, and actions that she has taken. After several weeks passed, I resent it to her as an open letter. All commissioners were CC'd, so if you bothered to open it, you will recall what I wrote. I waited and still no response by Commissioner Schrader. Part of what I wrote, I calculated over the last 6 months that you've been absent from your seat noticeably more than your colleagues on commission. This year, you've already been absent during scheduled commission meetings, including the Quality Inn discussion. One distraction from your duties that seems to take your time is the National Association of Counties. I scanned their website. It appears to be a place where lobbyists and activists meet to push agendas. It advocates for uniform policies for all states. Whatever NACO's mission is, our county would be better off if commissioners stay local and work full-time with fellow commissioners. NACO membership is more than $7,500 annually, plus the thousands in travel expenses to maintain this. Association of Counties, the Oregon Association of Counties is around $130,000 a year. AOC should fill any need for lobbyists and advocates for pushing agendas. With advanced technology that has been embraced by private industry, resources like Zoom meetings should reduce the need for out-of-state travel and save precious taxpayer money. I don't have time to talk about the other areas of concern that I communicated to Commissioner Schrader. As time's running out, I'll get to them another time. But I have one question that perhaps you could answer during Commissioner comment. With the tens of thousands of dollars that are spent on these fees and trips over time, have you ever brought back something of value that became Clackamas County policy? And if so, was it worth the tens of thousands spent by taxpayers? Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else online? Gary, would you like to comment on how we take care of a constituent email?
Yes, Commissioners, you each have a policy advisor that is assigned to support you, and that policy advisor, with your permission, has access to your email, and that they review the email with you and ask how you'd like to respond to make sure they have your permission. Sometimes you respond yourself. We have a countywide email that we offer to the public, bcc@clackamas.us. That goes to all commissioners. It's also monitored by staff so that we can make sure that there's a response given. Sometimes people type your email addresses incorrectly, commissioners, because your email addresses are all different. It's not your first initial last name for all of you. So that's why we encourage the bcc@clackamas.us so that staff can track it and make sure that a response is given. So perhaps there's somehow the email from Mr. Weir may have been misplaced, but we'll search our files and make sure that we get a response out.
Yep, there have been, I know my emails have been diverted elsewhere. And I know Commissioner West had to have a unique email when he came on, so it happens. Thank you. I think that I will now close this portion of the public communication and go on to the county administrator update.
Yes, that's me, Commissioners. I have two quick pieces of business for you first, and that is back to your consent agenda on the item on the approval of the Quality Inn property for Project Turnkey. Just so no one is assuming bad intent, this is simply, you've already approved that decision. This was simply allowing that the chair or the administrator can sign the closing documents on your behalf. The original board order had it said "and," which meant both of us had to sign. We corrected that to say "or," so that either of us could sign. That's really what that was about, just so in case anyone was wondering what's going on, we're just amending the order of the decision you already made, and that you are delegating that Chair Smith or myself can sign any of the closing documents, any of the grant agreements, anything related to that project. If there is a substantial difference, we will come to the full board without a doubt. But if it's just approving what you've already approved, Chair Smith or I can sign it. Just wanted to clarify that's what that item was. And then second, we do have an answer on the question you asked about the Jansen Road Apartments. It is in Clackamas, the unincorporated area off of 82nd Drive by Tolbert Road. In that area of the county, that's where the apartments are. That's where Jansen Road is. To clarify that, thank you. And if I can quickly give some good news, which I normally do during my report, I want to recognize Juvenile Department Manager Kelly Russell, who is recognized by the National Interstate Commission for Juveniles, which is charged with administering compliance with federal law that regulates the interstate movement of youth who have run away to another state. The note said, "Your juvenile department and myself ran into an unusual situation with an Idaho return case, and Kelly Russell of Clackamas County did a fantastic job handling the situation. Generally, return cases are done during the week, with travel plans done in advance so we can approve them and ensure everything is lined up ahead of time for a smooth transition. Unfortunately, that did not occur in this case when Idaho provided a last-minute notification, which was on a Sunday on Kelly's day off. Ms. Russell did exactly what she should have done. Her actions ensured that Oregon maintained our compliance as well as ensured the youth safety and that the youth was released to the appropriate individual. I am very grateful for Mrs. Russell's hard work and assistance with this matter and wanted to pass on these kudos. So thank you, Kelly Russell, for your outstanding work beyond the call of duty on your day off on a Sunday, but Kelly got the job done to support this young person in their transfer back to Oregon. Next, I want to recognize Garrett Teague in our Public and Government Affairs Department. You may recall, Commissioners, it was a few weeks ago or months ago, I can't remember, but you heard from staff the story of Chelsea, who is a Clackamas County resident who is challenged with drug addiction. She went to the Clackamas County Drug Court, was involved with our Children, Family, and Community Connections Division of Health, Housing, and Human Services, and she now is a contractor working on the Replacement County Courthouse, right out here outside our building. Remember we talked about this with you a few weeks ago? So our Public and Government Affairs Department actually did a video of her story, Chelsea, and it got the attention of the Oregon Judicial Department. And the Oregon Judicial Department asked for a copy of the video, and Garrett Teague in Public and Government Affairs added some footage of Chelsea working on the courthouse, added that to the video. So we got a note from the state Oregon Judicial Department who wrote, "I want to acknowledge Garrett. The Oregon Judicial Department leadership saw the Clackamas County video, Chelsea's story, and asked if we could adopt it to use in their budget presentation to the Oregon State Legislature in the support of drug courts." After getting permission from Garrett in Clackamas County, and he added photos of the courthouse groundbreaking and design renderings, Garrett was helpful, responsive, and came up with excellent solutions to meet our needs. I want to know that we really appreciate his assistance and professionalism. And I believe the state's going to provide money for drug courts too. So thank you to Garrett and to our Children, Family, and Community Connections Division for their excellent work helping our community. That is my update today.
What a great story that is. We're going to take Commissioner Communication a little bit out of order from what's on your sheet, Commissioners. I'm going to start with Commissioner West. He and I have a request, so go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Colleagues, Chair Smith and I started to kind of do some noodling on issues that came up earlier this week that was presented to us in a legislative update with Senate Bill 847. And it was of the advice of the staff to say, hey, maybe we want to take a neutral position on this. But Chair Smith and I kind of walked away and had additional questions, so just kind of started to collaborate. Senate Bill 847 is Senator Jama's bill out of District 24. If you guys aren't aware of where that is, that's in North Clackamas. It covers a bunch of Damascus. I think over half of a big chunk of his Senate district is in that part of our county. Chair Smith and I have found that as we kind of dug into this a little deeper, that Senator Jama has been a really good leader as we try to address this housing issue. He's really tried to work in a bipartisan fashion to really find creative and innovative solutions. And as we dug a little deeper in this bill and thought about how it impacts Clackamas County, I'd like us to maybe really actually consider supporting with the amendment request. I know that some of the commissioners had concerns about the property tax freeze associated with it. That's only on brand new construction, not even property taxes we're realizing right now.
And not on the land.
And not on the land. And so that we found that to be quite negligible and not necessarily an issue. And you know, I look forward to continue to be a good partner, and I hope this board does too, with Senator Jama as we work together to fix these housing crisis that we're facing. There was an issue about building in commercial zones, some residential, but yeah, that would absolutely be with code enforcement. And in this bipartisan effort, you know, the county might need to work within the massage of the bill a little bit to say, hey, where can we mitigate mandates? Where can we be more permissive with the counties and not mandating to the counties? But and where can we promote local where can we facilitate this locally? So I would like us to maybe look at maybe making this actually a priority, working hand in hand with Senator Jama to figure this out, and maybe just reconsider, take it back to staff, have staff find out where we can maybe mitigate some of the mandates, but really look to be collaborative in supporting Senate Bill 847. I have one more Senate bill I'd like to bring up. I think
Not now. Let's finish
Finish
talking
this
about
one?
this.
Okay.
Yes. So, Commissioner Savas, I don't think we're going to move this as to our priority. We have priorities that we've already decided on. What we need to do, I believe, on this, as I've instructed staff to reach out to DTT to see what mandates are troubling to them in this, because we had one department over here supported it, the other department over here, we kind of don't like these mandates. So what I would like to do,
yeah.
I would like to call Senator Jama, because we've instructed DTT to identify what they have heartburn over, and ask him, can some of that language be more permissive and not mandate the counties to do what our department didn't like? And we've taken a pretty hard stand on no mandates, and it is important. But this is, I think, a good housing bill. He has been friendly to us on what we want to do. So I would like to support him in a good relationship and not just take a hard, neutral position on it. And I know that other counties have already weighed in on this. It's not necessarily, I don't think that we write down, but if you could allow me the latitude to call him once I find out what those mandates were and ask him if it could be more permissive, that we would support that. And we're up a hard deadline of tomorrow. I could make that call, and then I could update you folks after the conversations. Is that okay?
I think that's great.
Chair?
Yes, go ahead.
I've been spending all this time trying to pull that back up. I didn't want to remind myself what was in the bill. And the one bullet, I just want to remind everyone that I also had an issue with. You addressed one of them to some degree, but the other one was the last bullet of the first summary, first portion, which is the summary, where it states, restricts local government ability to regulate condominiums. So to me, when it says restrict, that's one thing, but understanding what the regulations are and so forth, I've got concerns about that because I know it's complex because there is specific zoning that we, as I understand it, we really don't have for condoing. And it's a property ownership, land use issue, so I think that's a lot for one bill.
I do too.
So I suggest if that's stricken, that eases my heartburn.
Okay. And as we know how the legislature works, a bill will start on one side of the House, and then it'll move over to the other side of the House for possibly more technical fixes. And so I just would like us to be present at the table and work on that. Now, I did not know about a second bill that you wanted to bring up. I allowed for this one bill.
It's quick.
So, in the future, one bill, and the reason why I'm doing it is because it's the legislature, and we're up against some hard deadlines. Can you do it quickly?
Yeah, and that's why I bring this up. We've talked about it previously in the past, is because I'm told this is getting a hearing. It doesn't, so this may be mute, so I'll be quick. Some of the great work that the RH3S Services does under the leadership of Mr. Cook is we do a lot of work to help transition foster care kids that age out of this system and into supportive housing, into some stability as they go on to be young adults. It is critical work as we address homelessness and other issues. It's a vulnerable population that I know everybody here knows that I deeply care about. Senate Bill 449 would work adjacently with our county to help those kids have further stability through higher education. In 2012, a Republican-led bill was passed that if a child ages out of the foster care system, they get free in-state tuition. However, there's a loophole there that is very, very punitive, that if a child gets adopted, especially if they're a teenage child or a little bit older child, they lose that free in-state tuition even though they spent a significant number of years in foster care. So kids are having to choose between finding a forever home and being adopted in the state of Oregon or getting their in-state tuition. Literally, I've talked to a number of young people that are in this situation that want to be able to to have a family of their own, but they can't afford and figure out how to pay for higher education.
And so what's your ask?
My ask is that because of the work we're already doing with H3S, that we would see the significant benefit to this population in our county, and the county will support Senate Bill 449 if it gets a hearing, which I believe it will come out today.
Okay, that needs to be addressed at issues on Tuesday, since I have not seen the bill and not read it, and this is brand-new commissioners. I don't want to put any of us in a position of supporting something without having PGA or county council read it. I appreciate your passion on that, Commissioner, but we're not going to do anything brand-new today at this dais
I just
on
make you guys
that.
aware of it today.
Yeah, Commissioner Schrader.
Yeah, I was going to suggest if we have bills that are popping up that we're going, oh goodness, this fits with something we need to do, let's bring it up at issues. But I do think we have to be careful if we have too many one-offs
Yep.
with our staff. You know, so we also should have a way, if there is a particular bill we're interested in, and we don't object to somebody going down and saying, hey, that's a good bill.
Well, I will
I can
remind-
get that, but I worry that we got to keep focus.
I know. We do have special ops.
Yes.
Yeah, and I'm
Okay.
trying to avoid special ops, but, you know, there's going to be a time when we're just going to have to go slam, bam, thank you, ma'am, keeping in mind what I think the broad support of this board wants. So that's why we're having the discussion today.
Good.
Okay? Yeah, just making sure commissioners are aligned with this. Commissioner Savas, you're up.
Yeah, I don't disagree with Chair Smith's advice here. So always knowing what the bill is and who signed on to it and so on. And also the timing, and I think having our staff monitor the bill sometimes is a value. We have, not I, but we have experienced bills that look like something one day, and the next day, and let's say we get behind them, and the next day they turn out to be something different.
Right.
I'll just say HB 2017, for example, and now we are fighting tolling. So the consequences of you know, and sometimes that can't be helped. But we have seen in the past bills that are one thing one day, and then a few weeks later, they're something completely different, and yet we're signed on to supporting it.
Yeah.
So I think monitoring and waiting for the right time is one thing, or perhaps helping to shape it to make sure it stays what it is, and knowing the people that are sponsoring the bill are committed to whatever that purpose is, that we support it in the first place or not, is a value. So it's all, as you know, you never know.
No.
You never know what's going to happen with any bill.
Right.
As well, and I really appreciate Commissioner West, his last bill he spoke to, because I think it provides hope for kids that are in a tough spot, and it seems like a very tough decision for someone to make. Either have a roof over your head and lose your education, or have the education and not have a place to live. That's a tough call.
I have to give you some context on this, Commissioner West. When I was in the legislature, Representative Elaine Shetterly at the time, who was Speaker Pro Tem, had a very, very large heart for foster kids. And he tried for years and years and years to fund education for this very group you talk about. And for years, he asked the legislature for $250,000 is all to service foster kids who aged out for college, is all $250,000. And year after year, it got rejected. And it was finally on my second term in the legislature that I think we finally passed it.
It was Republican-led.
It was Republican-led, but my point is, it took forever to get to what this bill is today. That it was such a big lift to get to what this bill is today. And so where it may not be adequate in some quarters, I tell you, in a way, we've come far on this. I sympathize for this, but I suspect there's other issues regarding this, and it's really too bad. But thank you. So under Commissioner Communication, would you like to comment on anything else?
No, I just wanted to address those two legislative things as we hit a deadline in the legislature and just throw those out there. The Senate, we did run that bill twice in the House. It passed the House unanimously. We had difficulty in the Senate for the last couple of sessions. We fought for this bill. This bill, my personal bias is informed by my own family story. There's more to it that we don't have time to get into on this foster care bill. I just think as I hope that maybe this time, working with Senator Bonham and Weber this time, and even we get something like it over the finish line. Kids should not have to choose between a forever home or whether or not they get some tuition benefit. And we need to promote adoption in the state and stable family units, and this bill does that, and it fixes an unintended consequence of the legislation that sounds like Chair Smith was a part of, which was good legislation and compassionate. So
We got something passed.
you
May
got
not be
something- there you go.
perfect, but we got something
But
passed.
and I'm not saying we shouldn't have done that. I'm just saying let's do a little better. So that's all I'll say. Everybody wants to say something, but Senate Bill 847 is important, and so is Senate Bill 449.
Thank you for Commissioner West for bringing that up. Up next is Commissioner Schrader.
Great, thank you, colleagues. I got a quick question for Gary. Gary, how much in ARPA dollars did this county receive overall?
I'm sorry, would you say that one more time?
ARPA dollars, I'm sorry this is off the top of your head, I wasn't
80
expecting
million,
it. Was
80
it-
million of the spending ARPA, is that what you mean?
Yeah, overall,
The
that's what
county
we,
received just over $80 million total in ARPA funds. You have approximately $12 million left that you have not allocated yet. Everything else you've already allocated.
so colleagues, I have to say something because I always say I'd rather be Steve McQueen under the radar screen a little bit, so I don't often want to take credit for things. I usually try and make sure other people get the credit. But it was my work at the National Association of Counties as chair of the Community Economic Development Workforce Group that was part of the coalition that accessed those dollars, not just for our county, but for every county in the United States of America. So if you could, once in a while, maybe give me a thanks, that would be great.
Commissioner Schrader, I'm going to intervene and say something.
Yes.
So because counties got to make their own decision on how to spend the $80 million that we received, in fact, the direct payments were made to counties, which was a really big deal. Really big deal. It was because of your work at the National Association of Counties that helped facilitate that.
Yeah, and I don't want to get political, but I do know President Biden. I've met him a number of times. And it was his, and he knows who I am. I mean, kind of. I mean, I'm low down in the totem pole. But when they were talking about ARPA money and he said that, and counties weren't mentioned, it was our work, because he was a county commissioner, okay? So he was a county commissioner, and so he knows where the work actually comes to meet, rubber meets the road. And he insisted that counties, and I've met with him as a county commissioner before, and I also have very good relationships with the rest of our delegation. And oftentimes the National Association will use my expertise to actually speak and in front of other members of Congress. Because the other thing I'd like to mention is when you look at things like the Hillside Park Redevelopment Project, okay, the grant request, well, that's the Oregon Department of Housing and Community Services. I'm actually trying to find the HUD money that we get.
The 30 million?
Yeah, that's in here somewhere.
Consent agenda. That
That
was
was,
hearing.
it was a hearing. Well, you have to understand that at our level, counties are never assured that HUD's going to get the funding that it needs, okay, to continue to do these kinds of grants. 30 million to us and the millions that HUD does to the rest of the nation. So every year in my committee, we have a resolution that goes to the federal government to remind them that we need that money, we need that HUD money. It cannot go away because it's one of the key revenue streams that we have to build housing here. So one of the reasons you go back and forth, and I know that colleagues, you're going to go back next week because you're going to be talking to our delegation, is because a lot of what we do, and particularly in human services and because of the crisis we have, is going to depend on the relief we get from the federal government. And when you do that work there and they know who you are and they respect your opinion, it raises not only the ability of our county to get additional dollars, it also, like I said, I mean, I kind of like the fact that it's helped everybody across the nation too. I mean, that's part of it. So I just want to let you guys know. I know you guys know that I go there and I'm trying to do things like that. So I just wanted to make that clear. And I did want to mention this to Ben because something else that I'm bringing back. There in February, at the end of February, there's an article here that says how counties can fund a local behavioral health continuum of care. So I was hopeful I could work with Ben, all right, on this because they have provided us with a funding chart that's accessible, that reflects how counties across the country are actually funding behavioral health care crisis services with resources. So the other thing you bring back from these is these kinds of ideas, so you don't have to reinvent the wheel. So I was actually going to mention this today anyway, and there's the site here, and I was wondering if you guys would mind if Ben and I would get together and take a look at that, because it, and I think we're doing a really good job now with our staff, but I think it'd behoove us to take a look at this and see if we can get a best practice. So some of it is tangible with the money, some of it is maybe more intangible, where you say, well, okay, this is a best practice, how can we apply it here? But enough of that. Another thing I wanted to let you folks know is I was at my meeting with Greater Portland, Inc. the other day, working on our comprehensive economic development plan for the entire region. I wish it wasn't Greater Portland, Inc. I wish it was Greater Clackamas, Inc., but oh well, I'm not going to get in the way of the name that I don't really like very much. The other thing I've been doing, and I think I gave you guys all information about KinderCare, that's the packet that people get when they enter their child into the program. They have a great program. I have visited their corporate offices and met with them about what they're doing in order to increase childcare, again, not only nationally but locally here in our county. Their headquarters is in Clackamas County in Lake Oswego. Okay, I've visited 2 facilities so far. There are days I'm thinking, when I get too tired of days here, I should just go in and hold the babies. It would make me feel better at KinderCare. But in any case, one of the reasons I'm visiting them is because one of the things that's going on with the CHIPS Act, there seems to be bubbling up this requirement that childcare is one of the issues that they want to, I guess this was, I think it's whatever department it was, the Biden administration said if they're signing it, they'd really want to see health care provided.
Commerce Department.
The Department of Commerce, yeah, there you go. So I thought, well, we better look into this. I was thinking ahead because Daimler company actually contracts with KinderCare in order to make sure that their employees have daycare on site. The other group that has a daycare center is Siemens, which is another international traded sector company. And Siemens finds that it increases productivity and, and it actually really helps getting people into the workforce once they can not worry about that. So I'm looking at it more from a private sector model where you get the larger companies and then you get KinderCare, which is also a company that provides this, to see if there's some way we can, if there's some integration there as we move forward with childcare. And I love their program. I know that Christina has accompanied me on these trips. And it's just fantastic. She really loves the program, and she has 2 kids in childcare right now. So there's the KinderCare piece. The other thing I'd like to say about, I think it's Daimler is how you say it? Mm-hmm. Daimler or Daimler? Daimler, okay. So Daimler, Cisco, which is our big company here that is an international food producer, distributor, they have committed as of 2030 to get 1/3 of their fleet in electric trucks. Okay, that's pretty significant. But who's building the trucks? Daimler. So when you switch from one way of doing things to another, oftentimes it helps our larger businesses and all the supply chain of businesses up and down the chain to actually innovate and build new things. Because Daimler's going to be building at least a number of trucks. I don't have the number off the top of my head, but 1/3 of their fleet with electric trucks. So that's a move to, again, clean energy. And it brings me to the statement I made last week that, quite frankly, I really wish that if we're worried about, carbon emissions, we need to be really looking at the electric grid. We need to make sure that that capacity is there. And then we need to be working with the companies that are building the batteries and also coming up with a way with those batteries to make sure that they are disposed of in an environmentally sensitive way so it's not contaminating it. But those are different businesses that come into play with that. So, yeah. Oh, and that brings me to another thing that I'll talk about NACO one last time, is that I had the opportunity to be at one of their events. I was at the Large Urban County Caucus, where we had a dark sky event with the military. The dark sky event is not about light pollution. It was a general telling us what it would be like and what the scenario would be like if the grid comes down. And I have to tell you, we'll be shut down big time. It'll be a huge, huge problem. So the other thing I realized when you come to the electricity generation that needs to be, need more of it if we're going to switch to electric, and we need to get getting policies to get plugins out there. The other thing is we have to have increased security, because if that grid is attacked, the scenario, and I know, Commissioner Shull, you know that the military is big on scenarios. They'll kind of run these scenarios. It was chilling. I mean, we were all going to lose water, heat, food, and everything would stop. And so that's just another thing that makes me think we got to start thinking of these policies. So I don't know if I hope it's worthwhile. And that's what I've been doing. And thanks for your support, you guys. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
And Commissioner, I'd be more than happy to look at that with you and to work
Okay.
in tandem with you on what that is. Yeah.
I think it's a great project. Commissioner Shull, you're up.
Yes, good morning, Clackamas County. Some issues I'd like to share with the residents of the county this morning. One is safety off the street projects. I'd like to commend the city of Portland. They're working on a project just off 82nd Avenue between Oak and Pine, 1 block north of Stark Street. That's going to be a safety off the street parking area for people living in their cars. They're also working on another project for RV parking up by Northeast Portland. And these villages will provide on-site services, including restrooms, showers, and laundry, housing support, behavioral support, and they're doing it in a cost-effective manner. If you know somebody who's living in a car or an RV, let them know about these projects and contact Multnomah County or the City of Portland for more information. In Clackamas County, we need these projects also, and if you have an idea for a project, contact the county and let's get the ball rolling on that. Solving homelessness is a county, business, church, and community project requirement. Everybody needs to work together on it. On single-payer health plan, this is an issue that can affect everybody in the county. Many people are concerned who have been paying into a private health care insurance for many years and now are at the time in their life where they need to use that coverage. Oregon lawmakers are considering a bill that could put the state on the path towards a single-payer health care plan system as implemented in the constitutional amendment guaranteeing access to medical care. Now, the Senate Health Care Committee on Monday heard initial testimony on Senate Bill 704, which would establish the framework for how the state will ensure universal access to health care. And that's based on the Measure 111 from 2020, which made Oregon the first state to adopt a constitutional right to affordable health care. So SB 704 would create the Universal Health Care Plan Governance Board, and that board would be responsible for coming up with a plan for a single-payer health care plan by 2025, and then would be responsible for implementation of that plan starting in 2027. So take a look at SB 704 at the OregonLegislature.gov/citizen engagement. See how it might affect you and contact your state rep accordingly. Also take a look at other bills that are before the state legislature. There are many of them, and they're moving through them quickly. So get on it, take a look at it, see what affects you in a positive or negative way, and contact that state rep. On short-term rentals, if you didn't see the policy session yesterday on STRs, you can see the video and the draft regulation on the county website under the Board of Commissioners meetings. And take a look at it. Public hearings will be coming up. Date and times will be announced later, and be prepared to make a public testimony on that. On the tolling of I-205, again, don't give up. Continue to look at this. Your family and your business budgets need to be taken into consideration when we look at tolling. And if you want to take some action now, go to votebeforetolls.org, download the petition, circulate it, and get involved. Talk to your state representative. For a thought for the day, I believe that the only way to achieve good government is when the people are involved to the maximum extent possible, and transparency of government is at 100%, keeping the people informed and stimulating discussion. Liberty cannot be preserved without a general knowledge among the people who have a right and a desire to know. That's from John Adams in 1765. And I wish you all a good day on this spring day. Thank you.
Thank you. So Commissioner Scholl, on the single payer, is that still going to allow for private insurance?
That is something that bears more scrubbing into this issue. I can't tell you exactly, Chair Smith, to what extent private health insurance might be affected by this.
I had heard at one time it might, and so I would have no problem in opposing Senate Bill 704, and I appreciate you bringing that forward, because I do think choice for your own health care is something that's very important in this state, as choice for our own medical decisions. Right. But thank you for bringing that forward. Commissioner Savas.
Thank you, Chair. Yesterday, late morning, when we were discussing short-term rentals, our Clackamas County Coordinating Committee, subcommittee, the titled Tolling and Diversion Subcommittee met, and the co-chair of that was Councilor Morrow, or Commissioner Morrow from Oregon City. Did a great job. I was able to attend 45 or so, maybe almost an hour after the meeting started, but I did follow up on the remainder of the meeting. And it, ODOT presented a little bit more about their environmental analysis called the NEPA, and the comments from our members of the cities primarily, and some of the unincorporated CPOs, hamlets, their representative was in attendance there as well. No big surprises out of there, but it was just a long day as the tolling conversation continued on. And yesterday afternoon, I met to set the agenda for the Region 1 Advisory Committee on Transportation, which is an ODOT committee, and tried to get the EA for an item of discussion. And that, unfortunately, was not able to accomplish that, to get that on there. But late yesterday, I also learned that the Regional Tolling Advisory Committee, a lot of acronyms out there, called RTAC, that the meeting in March was canceled, as I knew it then. And so when I was meeting with the ODOT folks about the Region 1 Act and trying to get that on there, I was making the point that how can we talk about the EA as a region if we don't have an opportunity to talk about it at this Regional Tolling Advisory Committee, because the meeting was canceled. So anyhow, I was feeling pretty bummed out last night. And this morning we had our JPAC meeting, another acronym, Joint Policy Advisory Committee on Transportation. And our own Chris Lyons and other lobbyists were there from other jurisdictions giving them the legislative update before the JPAC members, which include the City of Portland, Metro, cities of Washington County, cities of Clackamas County, cities of Multnomah County, Clackamas County, Washington County, and Multnomah County as well, sitting in the capacity myself. So after we got that legislative update from them, I try to nudge them a little bit to how do we have a regional discussion. The deadline for the EA is prior to the next C4 discussion. There's no regional opportunity. And I mentioned I was being inclined to make a motion, which ultimately I did. I made a motion this morning at the JPAC meeting to send a letter to ODOT to extend the comment period from to a total of 90 days, an additional 30 above the 60. And that got voted on unanimously by the jurisdictions minus, because the Port of Portland is not really a jurisdiction because they're not really elected, right? They are appointed by the governor. And also the Oregon jurisdictions, Portland, and all those, all voted in favor of it. But it carried. And I learned in that process afterwards that maybe the meeting wasn't canceled for the Regional Tolling Advisory Committee, but it was actually not going to happen because of the Easter, not the Easter break, but the spring break. So while we were talking, I just got a message from one of the ODOT folks that want to clear up any discrepancies. But nonetheless, unless the comment period is extended, nonetheless, regardless of what the reasonings were, why there's no meeting, there needs to be a regional discussion on that extension. But we did get it passed, which is great. So that's a great step for us. And of course, next week, Commissioner or Chair Smith and I will be in Washington, D.C. And I just want to talk about our travel. When I first was asked to go to D.C., I said, I want to know why and why now. I need to have a good reason, number one, to take me away from the local work I'm doing and to make a good justification for myself, not for any defense, but just I want to know how to best spend my time. And while it's nice to get on a plane to some degree, not so much, and it might be nice to be in Washington, D.C. during the cherry blossom season, which is now, right? So we go there might be cherry blossoms, but it's nice to visit all the folks, and it is interesting. I want to make sure my time is well spent. So I was on the fence on whether or not to go, and I made, knowing that we have two new Congress folks representing Oregon, I thought it would be really important, number one, obviously, to introduce ourselves to them and let them know what our issues are, as well as an opportunity to speak to our legislators or our federal delegation regarding the fact that the Federal Highway Administration needs to approve this tolling environmental analysis. So I made it a point that if I have that opportunity, that it would be worth going. So instead of digging my heels in and saying, no, I'm not going to go, I chose to go because this is such a hot issue. It would be, I think it'd be a shame if I didn't do that for that very purpose alone. So I will be going, and we'll be gone 3 days. We're going with the slimmer crew than in the past, because typically we had a lot more folks with us. So we've made a lot of, I think, conservative moves, fiscally conservative moves, to make sure that our travel cost and times are reduced as much as possible. But it's hard to put a value on things. We've done a lot of good things, and we have a lot more to go, but unless we talk to those folks directly and show up at their door, our influence, it's part of our job to do that. So that's all I have for today, Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Savas. You and I will be leaving Tuesday, returning late Thursday. We fly in, we work all day Wednesday. We check out of our hotel rooms Thursday, but we work all day Thursday, and then take the red eye home because I don't want to be gone any longer. And I am rather conflicted, like Commissioner Savas, doing this in the springtime when there's so much work right now to be done. I alluded to some of it previously with the government, but we're in a legislative session that it's pivotal to Clackamas County, that we're there engaging and representative. We do have a staff down there, a public and government affairs staff who are able and capable, but we still have our personal work that we do. And some of that was brought forth today. And I hope, Commissioner Savas, you get some time with the Federal Transportation Commission. And you remember I asked that question when ODOT came forward about the NEPA analysis. So what is your authority to implement tollings? They told us they were going to do it through the NEPA analysis. And I kind of thought that was fishy at the time, and it is still. So there's that. Yet last night we met with the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District at Concord Center, where a new library is going to be built. And this board agreed under the hat of the North Clackamas County Parks District that we would sell a portion of the land to the library board, which is us, to construct a new library. And that was a big deal. We've been going back and forth. Do we lease? Do we sell? Do we lease? Do we sell? We decided to sell, so you'll be hearing some more about that as we move forward. Everybody in the room, except one person, said, yes, buy it, we want it. We don't want to be able to construct a library on a piece of land we don't own, right? I am totally in agreement with that. So that was, it was a good time. It was good turnout. People participated. It was lovely. Seeing no further communications before this board, we are adjourned.